Hi everyone, welcome to another installment of Q&A with Kareen. And today I have a question from Jamie, and she asks, I desperately need to fertilize or somehow amend the soil in my garden beds, as they haven't been producing to the extent that they have in the past. I'm not sure where to begin and would love any recommendations you may have. So thank you so much, Jamie, for your question. This is a very common question in terms of what do you do every year to amend your garden soil. And it is something that I would recommend that you do every year. So the important thing to understand, of course, is that the reason why your fruits and vegetables and everything are so nutritious is that they are drawing nutrient out of the soil. So it is important to replenish that soil in some way year after year. So what I typically do in terms of garden amendment is just add compost every year. So you can add composted manure, you can add compost that you can get from a nursery. Make sure that, of course, it's from a good source. If you do get manure, there are always concerns, especially with horse manure, that if the horses have been fed with hay that's been sprayed, that herbicide will persist in the manure. So be really careful about your sources and where you procure either compost or manure. If you are going to add manure in the early spring, make sure that it is composted manure and it's not hot manure. So, of course, you can also create compost yourself, by doing home compost piles. And I'll include a video below of how you create a home compost pile. The important thing to realize, though, and the feedback that I get very often from clients, of course, is that your home scale compost pile is probably not nearly enough amendment for your gardens, depending on how big your gardens are. So that's something to realize, that you might always have to bring that fertility in, especially if you don't have additional animals. So a lot of animals like chickens, or if you have goats, or of course if you have larger animals, then you can kind of close that loop on your own property. But if you have an urban scale or a suburban scale yard and garden where you don't have animals, that fertility piece is always probably going to be lacking. The other thing that you can do is, of course, it's those soil microorganisms that make the nutrients available to the plants. So increasing the soil microbial life is what your aim is. And you do that through additions of compost, but you can also accelerate that and or make your compost go further by brewing compost teas. So that's also another option, not only to create that home scale compost in your backyard, but then use some of that compost to reproduce soil microorganisms that in the form of compost teas that you will then add to your garden. So compost tea is a whole rabbit hole of information that I'm not going to go into detail about now, but just know that that might be an option and something that you might want to research. So again, just to summarize, what I would recommend is that every year you add at least 2 to 3 inches, if not more, of compost, composted manure, or some kind of additional amendment to your soil. You may want to make compost teas and go that route. And then the third thing that I would add is that you might want to also include things like making weed teas or comfrey tea as a fertilizer that you can use and add to your plants as they're growing throughout the season. So I do have a video that I'll post below on making comfrey tea, which again is another way to close your loop where you're growing some of your own fertilizer. So that's an option too. So let me know if you have any follow-up questions, Jamie, or anyone else that's watching this. Again, if you have any other gardening related questions, now's the time to ask before things get really busy during the growing season. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.